Crisis in Egypt. All day long, the world has watched as this life or death drama unfolded. A nation so key to the United States hanging in the balance. You're looking live at Tahrir Square, the heart of the uprising. It is filled with celebrations tonight now that the president has been ousted, but there is also fear that there will be bloodshed. The president's supporters will not give in easily. They are vowing revenge. The images of this day tell the story. The people of Egypt demanding their president step aside, the military stepping in, weapons drawn. And here is the very latest. The Egyptian military is effectively in control. The U.S. State Department is now urging all Americans to leave Egypt. We will explore what all this means to the U.S., which relies so heavily on Egypt to bring stability to such a dangerous region. Our team is fanned out across the globe tonight, but our coverage of this crisis in Egypt begins with ABC's Alex Marquardt in the center of it all in Cairo. Alex.
Elizabeth, as you can hear, there are wild celebrations here on Tahrir Square tonight. This is the same place where 2.5 years ago they deposed a dictator, and today they're doing the same to the first democratically elected president. And tonight he's fighting back. As the seconds tick down toward the 5 p.m. ultimatum deadline, the crowd on Tahrir Square swelled to tens of thousands. Confusion mounted as the hours passed with no word. You have no idea who's running the country right now?
Not right now, at this moment, we have no idea.
But many already believe it was over for Morsi. Fireworks exploded, army military helicopters flew overhead to roars below. A sign the people felt that the army was on their side. Feels like a party out here tonight.
It is. Don't you feel it? I feel it.
Meanwhile, the military was deploying in the streets of the capital. The spokesman for the Muslim Brotherhood, Morsi's party, tweeted, "There is a full military coup underway now in Egypt." Then at 9 p.m., the military finally announced to the nation, Morsi is out. The head of the military said he was responding to the call of the people, suspending the Constitution and naming the top constitutional judge to take over until new presidential elections can be held. Tahrir Square, the birthplace of Egypt's revolution 2.5 years ago, erupted once again. Since Sunday, millions have poured into the streets across Egypt in historically massive protests, demanding that Morsi step down and calling for early elections.
This is the moment we've been waiting for 2.5 years. For every single blood that have been shed in this country, we've been waiting for this moment.
But while those in Tahrir celebrated, Morsi's supporters responded angrily. After working in the shadows for more than 80 years, the once outlawed Muslim Brotherhood isn't going down without a fight. President Morsi responded with an online video, rejecting the dissolution of the Constitution and accusing the army of stealing the revolution. Whoever planned this, he said, wants to spill the blood of the Egyptian people. Alex Marquardt, ABC News, Cairo.
As we said, Egypt has long been a critical partner of the United States, and ABC's senior foreign affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz has more now on America's view of this particular power struggle.
The chaotic scenes from Egypt today put the U.S. in a near impossible position. On one side, watching the angry Islamist supporters of Morsi, on the other, jubilant anti-Morsi protesters. But Washington cannot publicly support a military takeover of a democratically elected president.
We are not taking sides.
Yet it is clear that the administration was not happy with Mohamed Morsi and his failure to embrace the democratic process.
He must do more to be truly responsive and representative to the justified concerns expressed by the Egyptian people.
For America, Egypt is a critical partner in support of democracy and security in the region.
Egypt is an anchor for the region as a whole.
It is the largest Arab country. 1 in every 4 Arabs lives in Egypt. It sits on top of the Suez Canal, which is how our naval forces get in and out of the Persian Gulf, and the world's oil gets to global markets. And the $1.6 billion the U.S. gives Egypt every year in aid, most of it military aid, is second only to what we give Israel. With the region already in crisis, with Syria's deadly civil war, the nuclear threat from Iran, and a still unstable Libya and Iraq, What happens next in Egypt is of grave concern.
This coup is opposed violently by some factions, particularly perhaps the Muslim Brotherhood, and that could lead Egypt down the road of civil violence, which would be terrible.
And joining us now is Martha Raddatz and ABC's chief foreign affairs anchor Christiane Amanpour. And Martha, I'd like to start with you, if I may. Despite all that money we give to Egypt, we're really on the sidelines here. We have little or no influence over President Morsi or the military and the opposition.
Well, not over Morsi for sure. The military-to-military relationship between the U.S. and Egypt is very strong. They train officers here, pilots. In fact, there is an Abrams tank factory in Egypt that is run jointly. The U.S. seems to believe they will not take advantage of the power vacuum, and the Egyptian military has assured the Pentagon this is only temporary. But as you say, Elizabeth, we'll see.
And Christiane, you were, of course, the very last journalist to interview Egyptian's Hosni Mubarak, the president, before he was forced out 2 years ago. You've covered this nation throughout its transition. This is a real paradox we have here tonight. A democratic movement asking the military to oust a democratically elected president.
You're absolutely right. It's a real paradox. And what you're going to see, I'm sure, is the United States top officials going to be turning themselves into pretzels, trying not to call this a coup. Because if they do call it a coup, and if it looks and acts like a coup, then the U.S. law demands that certain military aid and other aid is halted. Obviously, there's a lot of wiggle room, but you're right. Some are saying, Morsi's faction, that this is an out-and-out coup, stealing the revolution, and obviously the anti-Morsi people saying, no, this is our vote with our feet, and this is a reset of the revolution.
And this is still a country very divided. We saw the images tonight, the hundreds of thousands in Tahrir Square celebrating, hundreds of thousands protesting 6 miles away. What are the chances violence might break out?
Well, that's right. That is a worry. There has been some violence overnight last night. Morsi has called for peaceful resistance, but he said that he's still the legitimate president, and he doesn't want people to accept what's happened. It's very crucial what's going on here, because as Egypt goes, so does the rest of this region. So it's a real test case and vital for the United States.
And Martha, one more question for you, if I may. Now that President Morsi is out, who's in charge, as they say, in Egypt?
Well, they say they have this interim group in charge right now. It is pretty much unclear. I mean, they've dissolved the Constitution. There is one particular person they say is in charge, but we'll really have to see in the coming days whether that takes or not. Because right now, the military is in charge, and only the military.
All right, Martha Raddatz, Christiane Amanpour, thank you so much. Our coverage of the crisis in Egypt tonight.